It's Friday. I wasn't planning to post, but we need to talk about this. Dozens upon dozens of media outlets are quietly removing or adding a correction to pieces, including many about Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, because stories are based on dubious experts. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but the trend of basing pieces on tweets from unverified accounts is a massive issue. In their investigation, the Press Gazette compiled a dossier of over 100 articles, which appeared in the Mail Online, The Sun, Mirror, Express, UK News, The Independent, The Telegraph. It's all based, partially or entirely, input from fake experts. Yahoo Life ran a piece about Meghan's show with Love Meghan, in which they had to issue a correction, stating that an earlier version of the story included information from a source whose expertise may not be valid. The quotes from the source have been removed. Fake experts are an old issue, but it's become increasingly harder to identify because of AI and also because of third-party databases like Response Source. Response Source and companies like it are a journalism request service. It connects journalists with experts. An expert on dog breeding in Birmingham, expert on Keynesian economics. These are services that help you find it and find it quickly. The problem is because of the amount of requests they get, it is very hard for a program like that to stay on top of fake profiles. Response Source, naturally, has said that lazy journalists are part of the problem. Which, there are just bad journalists out there. But I would say even more so is the speed at which news is flying all over the place and the number of articles and pieces that journalists are expected to write every day. Want to stay competitive? You got to keep churning out that content. You don't have time to pound the pavement and look up in your phone book and find an expert on Boris Johnson's hair. I don't know. So shortcuts are created. The problem, and this is a problem that we have with a lot of things, including search engines, is that because it sounds legit, we expect everything produced from it to be a legitimate source or article. We never stop to question that perhaps massive technology will get things wrong. We blanket trust apps and databases and search engines way too much. That's not an excuse for journalists not taking the time to say, oh, let me quickly Google that individual to make sure that they're a real person. But then that could get complicated if this fake profile has been quoted in other outlets. I see both sides of this, but I also think there's a greater responsibility on media outlets to ensure that they're reporting correct information, because this correction is going to go under the radar. And as we know, once a story is out there, it is very hard to put it back in the box. Since this is about the UK, we can talk about IPSO and the editor's code. The press regulator warned that quoting fake experts is breach of editor's code, which cool, great, totally agree with all of this. Is it just lip service? What are you actually going to do to help combat this? Because that editor's code seems a little loosey-goosey. I cannot say this enough. The self-regulatory body of editors in the UK has had problems for decades. IPSO is the latest iteration of the self-regulatory bodies. When Princess Diana died, it was the Press Complaints Commission, or the PCC. And because it cannot be said enough, most of the changes to the editor's code by the PCC when Diana passed were an effort to avoid actual government regulation of the press. Now, a free and fair press is something I believe in. Also, not sure a self-regulatory body is really going to hold themselves accountable. They clearly have their own self-interests and their business in mind and the future of their business, which is why the press went so hard at blaming everybody else for Diana's passing, not looking at the ways in which the hysterical media coverage and the frenzy that they created over pictures of Diana and her then boyfriend Dodi might have, I don't know, encouraged foreign paps to go absolutely too far in chasing down Diana's car in Paris, in that tunnel in '97. They didn't even stop to help her. They just kept snapping. And that is probably the last thing she ever saw. It's dark. Yet nobody talked about the fact that the Mirror had purchased a photo mere weeks ago of Diana and Dodi kissing on a yacht, very blurry, for £250,000 in 1997. And because she's on a roll, PCC at the time was a man named Guy Black. Who was Guy Black's long-term partner? Mark Boland. Mark Boland was the spin doctor for Charles and Camilla, and launched what turned out to be a very successful campaign to normalize and accept Camilla. Operation PB. Had also been in the Press Complaints Commission before that. Yeah, guy Mark Boland. So forgive me if I'm a little skeptical about if IPSO is actually going to do anything more than lip service to a growing problem of spreading disinformation to the public because of an over-reliance on third-party sources and not following through and making sure that these experts or Twitter users are actually who they say they are. And that goes back to reviews about Meghan's recent product launch. What, if any, confirmation did any of the articles with negative reviews do to make sure that that person had actually received the product and had actually tasted it? What was the process to verify that information? Because unless there is a link to a video of that person using the product, or there's a selfie of that person with the product, etc., it should be taken with a massive grain of salt.